Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Con Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now about the one series that Jayden Daniels played against the New York Jets. Now, as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm doing this from home. Preseason, I don't travel to the road games. So watch it from home. It allows me to give some good nuggets to you after the game in a quicker fashion. So let's go. So anyways, by the way, don't forget, if you want to become a gold member or a member, club member, go to the YouTube page and see the word join, click on there. I am going to have a private session for gold members in the next week or two, probably in the next couple of weeks, with former Redskin receiver Santana Moss. He's going to join us for one of those gold member sessions, and then that gets played for the other club members after we record it with Santana Moss. So, anyways, there you go. Let's get to the game because that's what you want to hear about. So, 20-17 Jets win. Irrelevant. As we know, outside of Steve Spurrier, nobody really is going to care about who wins or loses in the preseason. It's what do you show? And I think there are some things to see. What did the Commanders show? Because this is going to be a building process. And so what they showed at times, you see the physical, you see the fast, you see how they want to call it. We don't see the schemes on offense and defense that they're going to run or the plays are going to call during the season, whatever, some basic stuff. But, the desire to play fast, compete, and be physical. Those, I think, are going to be the things that define this season. Do they find enough guys who can do that? And I'm going to get into some other guys as we get into this breakdown about did they show that? So, but a lot of this was about Jayden Daniels. And the other thing we know, the New York Jets did not play their starters. So you have to take that into consideration when you're looking and trying to gauge how a guy did or what the offense did, what this team did, whatever. So that's a factor. However, you have to, again, you're looking for signs and things to build on more so than, how great did they, because they're not game planning, they're not doing anything like that. But you want to see, do they have the right guys? Did these guys show anything? And, when if you're starters, you're playing backups, you should do better, of course. However, when you look at Washington, they have a new offense, you have a rookie quarterback, and you had your top three offensive tackles missing. And I think that's a problem because I'm not sure they have a fourth. Everything gets taken into consideration to do it, but it's really, you cannot dismiss it because those guys weren't playing because this is a new program. You're trying to gauge where guys are at. You're trying to get, you want to learn the offense. They want to learn about these players. The Jets know their players a lot better because they've been in that program for a few years. This is a new one. And so you want to see the progression. You want to see who's giving you what if you're the coaches, right? So anyways, just a little spiel, but a lot of this is about Jayden Daniels. And by the way, I did want to talk about Cliff Kingsbury real quick too. I was going to talk about it later, but I'll start with that because one of the things I did like, and this is obviously a big factor last year, is how he called the game. And I felt, knowing that these tackles were going to miss, and I'll get to that in a minute, but knowing the tackles are going to miss, that if I'm Kingsbury, I'm calling handoff to Brian Robinson, a screen, and then a go ball, because in each of those cases, Jayden Daniels is going to be protected, right? Chances are they're not going to get to him on any of those plays. That's essentially what they called, except that one was a play that Daniels changed. And again, we'll get to that in a minute. But I liked how he called the game. I felt like he was very cognizant of what Washington had or didn't have up front. And he wasn't going to expose Daniels just for the sake of having him have to read through progressions and all that to see. I felt like he protected him and did with the play calls. Even on the zone read touchdown run, I mean, that's a decision that Daniels has to make with the zone read, but you're putting it in there because that's a possibility it might run. With the zone read, typically it does protect the quarterback more than just a scramble for sure. And on that touchdown, you saw that. Now he fakes it to Austin Eckler, takes off around the right side. The safety sees him, is assigned to him, can't get to him because he just goes wide, and he had two blockers. Easy money, folks. So point is, I like how he did that. And even later, and with Driscoll and the others, like you saw him sometimes change the launch angle, which helps against the rush. It's one way to lessen the rush. And so I think those things are important to pay attention to as well. Anyways, more with Jayden Daniels, because this is a lot of what this is about, is his growth. And I think it's funny because, again, I point out that they're not facing the starters, but I don't care, because you want to see the decision making, you want to see the execution and all that. And I think we saw that as well. Now, it wasn't perfect. He misfires on a screen pass. Has to be not a little bit more, just has to be more patient on the play. And I think, he drifts back okay, eyes in the right spot, and he just hurried the ball and just an overthrow. So, all right, you get it and you learn. But on the next ball, what I liked, of course, is this is the play that everybody was talking about because of the mechanics of the play. So it's a 3rd down and 6, and you have an empty backfield, and they have a screen called. Well, he sees, based on the defensive alignment, it's not going to work. Walks up to the line, audibles to a go ball to Dyami Brown, drops back, holds the safety, and that's what I like. Holds the safety with his eyes. You saw him do that in college, and that's it's something that quarterbacks have to learn, but he's already there with that. He did a good job at LSU with that. And part of it is he had to learn. They did it so much because they're throwing a lot of go balls. And so if he doesn't hold the safety, a lot of those go balls aren't going to be completed. Well, the same thing here. So holds the safety, hits his 5th step, plan step, boom, unleashes. And Dyami Brown, it's contested catch, but a nice grab down the right side. He gave Daniels room to complete the throw on the outside as well. So just a nice job by Brown. And on that play, and so you go back to the offensive line, how can a quarterback make a line look better? Well, on the play, Chris Paul is getting beat, and he was starting at right tackle, and he's not a right tackle. That's just all there is to it. But he's playing there because of the people who are out. And but did you know that? Did you know that he got beat on the play? Well, no, because the play was completed. All everybody's talking about is the 42-yard pass play, and not a guy who gets hit because he got the ball out. And again, it's a go ball, so you're going to hit that plan step and the ball's coming out. I mean, that you're not going to hold the ball, but it was a contested catch. So he gave his guy a chance to make the play. And I think that's also important, because I don't think that's always happened here. And certainly there were times last year where they wanted Howell to be more like that and just help the guys make a play, help McClure make a play, gave his guy a chance to make a play, and he made the play. For Dyami Brown, that helps, as Daniel said after the game, that helps him build confidence in what he can do as well. So it's a twofold thing. And I think it's very mature of Daniels to understand that aspect. Like, if I'm throwing this guy this ball and he makes a play, not only is it a big play here, it can lead to other plays down the road, because now he knows that you have confidence in him, et cetera. So I think he really understands the position very well and the responsibilities of the position. But on that play, again, and what they also liked is, this is something that Cliff Kingsbury talked to him about throughout spring and summer. If you see this, get to this. And he saw it and he got to that. And is it, I don't want to make too much of one play, but I think that's, we don't have a lot to go on. But I just like what he did, how he handled it, with the poise he handled it. Maybe a guy sees it and is like, oh, I'm not sure. Maybe should I change it or not? Well, he saw it, decisive, go. That's good. Now, he also looked over to the sidelines after the play. And this is the other thing that people there love about him, is the smile on his face. And he's pointing over there. I'm assuming he was pointing to Kingsbury, maybe, because they all knew. And Dan Quinn later said it was like if you've watched the movie Top Gun, Maverick, getting permission from the tower or whatever. And he said that for Daniels, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. But it's something they certainly are okay with him doing, especially because right play, and as Quinn said again, an absolute dime. So, but give Brown credit. And it's funny because people wondered how he fits in. Teams don't want to give away speed, right? They don't want to give up on speed. Brown hasn't been. We know what he's done the first 3 years. It hasn't been enough. A lot of that's on him. Some of that's going to be on other factors, perhaps. Can he finally do it this year? Well, he's been working as a third receiver, primarily behind McLaurin and Dotson, and ahead of like Zacchaeus, and certainly ahead of McCaffrey. McCaffrey, to be honest, just hasn't shown enough to supplant either one of those two in the pecking order. Now, I'll get to him a little bit later on. Anyways, back to Daniel. So that play was really good, but I think it highlights where he's at. And this is what, it's funny because this is what you have to know, again, how teammates feel about him. And I know you guys have heard over the years what guys say about different players or different quarterbacks in particular. So you have to let this play out. Let's not, I don't want to, I'm going to give you the quote, but just caution you to know, like others have said this. However, there's just something different with number 5 out there right now. And this is what Cosme said. Now, this is to WUSA Channel 9 during the game, to the sideline reporter. Longer quote, but I would just say, after he said he was calm and collected, we all sat on the sideline. We were like, dang, that was really fun. So I think everybody should be very excited just from that little sneak peek right there. I know I am. I know the guys are fired up. I think we got a dude back there. End of quote. Now, I know you've heard that before. So deep breath and just see what the next step is like, and see when he gets into a game against starters and has to go up against those kind of corners, and can the receivers get off the line, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I just think it's the infectiousness of his enthusiasm, and it's also the work he puts in, and the work you put in results in that one play. So again, I'm talking about one play from a preseason game against backups, but it was still what Daniel showed on that. And then he did have another pass to Terry McLaurin, a little screen on the right side. Felt like I wonder if he may have led him a little bit too much, because he kind of led him into a tackle, receivers blocking. I think it was Dotson, but the corner was able to come off the receiver on the play to make the stop. The ball was really far out front, and I wondered, so definitely things he's got to work on, and some of that is just settle down, take a deep breath, and don't, that's what that was. I think, it's funny because Sam Fortier tweeted out something too, that his first completion in college was almost an identical play that he had to De'Ami Brown. So it's kind of funny, but that's what he does, man. That's why he's here. And then the legs in the red zone, it's a good reminder to other teams that I don't know that teams are going to need the reminder, but it is a good one that the kid can make, or the young man can make plays with those legs. So, and you have to account for that, which is going to then open up, they hope, other things for other people. And that's the stuff that we don't know yet, the impact of all that, of his entire skill package, how that impacts and regulates the defense, et cetera. So, and by the way, I'm going to go back to Kingsbury real quick, since we're down in the red zone right now, or thinking of the touchdown. Michael Wiley had a touchdown run, subtle shift. He was to the right of the quarterback. He shifts to the left of the quarterback. Well, what that does, I believe it was a linebacker or a safety, moves from on the left side all the way over to the right. So basically clears out, and then Wiley just runs to the right side. Big hole, the end runs wide. Jayden Daniels was able to keep him out and just cuts through the hole, an easy touchdown. But just a subtle shift with that, with the back, and then it led to a big switch for the defense that led to a hole where the player had vacated. So anyways, so there you go. That's a lot of what, like I said, for Daniels, it highlights what they like about him and why they're excited. It's just another step. We're still looking at a ladder that he's still trying to climb, and we're still near the bottom of that ladder because he hasn't seen enough, right? This practice against the Dolphins coming up will tell more. The game against the Dolphins will tell more. The first, then I'm assuming, he wouldn't play in that third preseason game. So the game against the Bucs is going to tell a lot more. So there's just so much more to learn, but every step of the way he hasn't yet given you a reason to think, oh, he can't do this. So that's what I would say is as much that. Now, how good he'll be when, again, I don't know. I'm not that smart. So for the entire month of August, the Adventure Park at Sandy Spring is offering multiple ways to save on climbing and zip lining and 50% off axe throwing. There are only a few Sundays left without football, so it's time to get that last summer adventure on the schedule. There's no better place to spend the last few days and nights of the summer with friends and family. Don't just take our word for it. The Adventure Park at Sandy Spring was named the #1 aerial adventure park in North America by USA Today. Anytime you're thinking about reaching new heights, make sure you know before you go. The Adventure Park at Sandy Spring is the only ACCT accredited park in Maryland or Virginia. So there you have it, folks. For the rest of the summer, you can get the best climbing, zip lining, and axe throwing in the country, up to 50% off right here in the DMV. Reserve your adventure today at www.theadventurepark.com/Kime. Oh, the other thing I like too that Quinn did, and this is one of the reasons why they wanted to play these guys and at least get the young guys, the rookies, action in that first game. He said he talked to Daniels afterwards, and I'm assuming he's gonna do this with other players too, but he said, told them on the ride home, take down some notes about what you liked about how you handled pregame, because their pregame is different than it would have been in college, right? Just the mechanics of how they operate are going to be different than what they did at LSU or Arizona State. So he wanted Daniels to write down what worked for him, maybe what he would like to add to what he does out there, whatever. I think that's just kind of smart. Gives Daniels a little bit more ownership of how he prepares for the game as well. So I like that kind of stuff. I think that's just very smart. All right. So, anyways, let's get to some other thoughts in there because there are a lot of other guys that played, believe it or not. It's just that guy's the most important. So you can see how they want it, fast and physical. You can see that. I don't want to go again. I don't want to go overboard on that, but I do think you start to see the bones of that. That's how they want to play. I think they're going to look for guys who play that way. And by the way, I forgot to mention the tackles. As far as who didn't play, so as Cornelius Lucas was out for personal reasons, knew that was going to be the case. Expect him back probably early next week. I don't know when he's going to be back, but I don't know if he'll be back Monday. This is not some long absence by any means, but it's something he had to tend to with his family. So anyway, he'd be back. Brandon Coleman, Dan Quinn called him day-to-day / week-to-week with a strained shoulder pec. And then Andrew Wiley missed again with the tightness, and we're still not sure exactly where that tightness is, but he has it, and he hasn't been out there for a while. That's a problem because the depth of tackle just isn't there. And they're trying guys who are guards who are at tackle. Chris Paul, Mason Brooks, Trent Scott has not really, he hasn't done enough and he hasn't done much in camp to say he should be on the roster for sure, right? Maybe he gets on there, but is he a lock? No, and nor should he be. But I think there's times in the games it's in practice it's got to get better. And again, Mason Brooks a guard, Chris Paul's a guard, both working at tackle. Jayden Daniels has been working at tackle, which is what he played in college, but I almost wonder if he's not better as a guard because there's still issues that he has to clean up at tackle. So I don't know what they're going to do there. If all three of those guys are healthy, they're okay. Can they develop somebody in the practice squad, can get a veteran? Not a lot of guys out there, folks. I know it's just, and I'll get into that more maybe in another podcast, but there just aren't. But having said that, you may just have to find someone if some of these starters aren't going to be out there for a little bit because it just, they have a hole beyond those three. It would be nice to have a young guy to develop or whatever. So anyway, just there's some thoughts on that. With a guy like Chris Paul, like I like him inside. I think he's got some strength. I think at tackle, there's sometimes I'm not sure that he reacts as quickly as you would like, and that's going to lead to some issues. Jayden Daniels is athletic, but again, I don't know. He doesn't always play with good balance, and then finishing with strength. It's not what he does. He can get moved back like that. Now there are a couple of nice run blocks by both. I think Paul had a couple, and then like Mason Brooks he's just not a tackle, and that's just all there is to it. And I'd like to see him stay inside and work inside there. The hard part is one, they need guys, but two, they also want to see if you're a backup guard, can this guy help at tackle as well? Because that's going to factor into any decision to keep a guy or not. So, Brooks did have a couple struggles at guard as well. So I think there's some things to clean up there. I have liked Julian Good-Jones throughout camp. I think he's a guy that can help. I think Michael Dieter can help. So I think you have some interior depth, and I think you have interior choices with guys that develop between Paul, Brooks, and then, we'll see what happens with Daniels. But I do think that you're going to have to maybe, depending on how long they think some of these guys like Wiley or Coleman might be out, you may want to do something there and bring in another guy just because. But I always say that, and I'm like, well, if I'm going to say that, I need to say like, here are some guys who are out there. I don't want to go through all that list now. I have made the list, or I've checked list of top available tackles. And there aren't a lot that really, I think, makes sense for a few reasons. And by the way, Charles Leno is not an option to go get him back. He's still recovering from hip surgery. So that's not an option if you were wondering. So anyways, let's get to guys on the field. Emmanuel Forbes. So we know what happened in the joint practice the other day. gave up some plays to Garrett Wilson. I did talk to some people outside of here about what they thought of those plays. Like, what did he do wrong on these plays, to get a sense of just what to watch for. So on one of the deep ones, I showed him 2 plays, the deep one, then a red zone touchdown. So the deep one of the things that I talked to you in the spring, said that, remember talking to Fred Smoot about sometimes he feels like he needs to play a little bit low. When you're a taller corner, maybe play a little bit lower so you can come out with more balance when you turn. And I think you can see some of that there. That's one of the things I heard. Somebody felt like maybe he was a little bit too much back on his heels, which then gets you off balance as you turn. But then the other thing is that somebody pointed out to me, when he loses Garrett Wilson the inside in that play, you got to get your hands on him, disrupt the play somehow, because when he turns and goes, he's still there with him. But then at the end, he doesn't find the ball. And so then at the end, it's read the receiver's eyes better. And I saw that again today, where you need to read it a little bit better, the receiver's eyes, to then know the ball's coming. And I think on that one at Wilson, that was one of those. So there were a couple of things that he did there. And these are things he has to clean up. The question is, will he get there? Because I will say this, this is a team that if you're not playing a certain way, they don't have to keep you because you were a first round pick. Could they, they don't. And so now whatever that means, and then you're going to cut them, but could you look to make a move? I don't know. And I'm not saying they're at that point, but I'm just saying that he's got to show better to show that he can be a part of this particular defense. Because if you want to play a certain way, you need to have guys who play that way and then compete. The biggest thing is compete. Don't hang your head after a play. Compete, because if you don't do that, they're not going to like that. So the other thing they know, that they have Noah Igbenegeni, who can play in the slot. Well, what does that do? Well, if they feel like Mike Sanders still can play outside as well, even though he doesn't fit the prototypical Dan Quinn corner, if they feel he can move out there, they feel like they have Igbenegeni in the slot to then handle that spot and put Sanders still outside, because that kid's going to compete and he's going to play tough and physical. That's what they want. So anyway, I saw that. And by the way, the one, the Wilson in the red zone, in the end zone, in the joint practice, the part of the teaching point was, maybe he's got 2 choices there, slant or fade ball. And the way it's lined up, probably a fade. So take that away, maybe almost nudge him to the fade by your way you align your left foot at the snap. But then again, get your hands on him, disrupt somehow. And there's as somebody else said, too clean of a release to get that. So that's something to watch. Anyways, flash forward to today's game. So one of the first pass by the Jets, he does a good job staying with the receiver, breaks up the ball, a really nice job. So that was good to see. Now it's not, when it's not Garrett Wilson, but Garrett Wilson is one of the better receivers in the NFL. But it was a good job by him, because at the end, it's not overly physical with him, but he is up in press, and he does turn and run with them, has him to the inside, and gets his hand up between the receiver's hands to deflect the ball away. So a good job by him there. Later on the touchdown, same thing goes back to that red zone I just talked about again, Garrett Wilson. Now, what I liked here is I watched the left foot. So you watch at the snap, he gets his left foot up a little bit, so it's almost pushing him to the fade. Fine. But he's got it again. There's no attempt to disrupt in that area. Now, are they asking to do that or not? I don't know. That's something I would like to ask. Like, is that something that's, do they not want to do that for whatever reason? Don't know. But so other coaches would say they'd want him to disrupt and throw off the timing a little bit, because the timing was there on that play. And that's when you've got to be able to find the ball. And I think that's where he struggled a little bit too, is finding the ball after you do X, Y, and Z. And so, that's going to be a key for him. And the one thing for him, if he's not taking the ball away, what does he add to that defense? Now, he did get up and he made some run stops. I like that. He stuck his nose in there last year as well. So I like that. He just got to get he's got to get a lot more consistent with their coverage skills to be able to feel comfortable with him doing what they need to do. And again, compete. You've just got to compete. So anyways.
Hey, it's Bram Weinstein here, voice of the Commanders, and of course, frequent guest of this podcast, The John Keim Report. I wanted to let you all know that my show, which airs at 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on ESPN 630, is now exclusively produced by Empire Media, my company, and is going to be distributed through our network. So I'm asking you, please, if you subscribe to this show and love this show, give mine a try as well. Subscribe to the Bram Weinstein Show wherever you get your podcasts, and many of the shows and many of the elements that are in the show will be available on the Empire Media YouTube channel. We're going to talk a ton of Commanders and other DC sports. Check it out.
Speaking of guys, on that, I wouldn't even say on the bubble, because I don't think that, I'm not sure that he is, but Jamin Davis, but a guy that former past #1 pick that they want to see what do they have with this guy. Big difference here, I think, for Davis. And one of the things, again, you don't give up speed. He has speed. He has good size for a position, and you don't give that up easily. And I do think they are okay with his progression at defensive end, because even Joe Witt said the other day that, hey, he's been setting a good edge. So for a while, what you thought was third down guy. I don't know that you're going to put him in on early downs necessarily, because again, he's not facing starters for the Jets, but that's okay. You're still working through what he has to do. But what he did show when he was in there is the ability to set the edge. And what I really liked with it is the quick hands into the pads. I kind of felt like the first time stuns the tackle, gets off, makes the play. Next time he gets through the tight end, but stuns him with the pads, gets into him quick with the hands. Nice job. So those are really good plays by Davis. And I think those kind of plays are why they're going to give him a lot of time to show. And it could be, you might wait and see, because the key isn't so much where he's at now. The key is, where can he get to after 4 games, 8 games, 12, 17? That's what that's what they have to look at. So I think that's what they're going to do with him. So with a pass rusher, still haven't seen enough yet. I just think one of the things that you watch, like the get off isn't explosive. When I watch a game and you sit there and you stop the film when he's coming off the ball, well, he's typically even or just a little bit maybe back of where maybe the other end is, or maybe where some others are. So it's just the get off is not explosive. So he's not closing that gap with the tackle right away to try and do something. And I think he's still working as how to have a rush plan. Like, I think Frankie Lou, who is a linebacker, has a good rush plan. I don't know that Davis has that. So I think that's one of the things that he's got to get to, but that's the first, one step at a time here. First of all, learn how to attack the tackle, right? Learn where to get your hands, learn how to get the corner, set them up. He had one rush where he gets upfield too wide, a little bit too wide, kind of gets pushed out, tries to spin back inside, but not a good spin. It's just kind of a spin. There's an art to that spin, right? And tackle just kind of stopped him mid spin. So a lot to learn as a pass rusher, but was physical, and he does play fast. And I think that's one of the things that they're going to like about him, and why if I'm them, it's probably why they're going to stick with him and just see where can you get him to, what level. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at this point, if you tried to trade him, you're going to get a lower round pick. If he doesn't do anything as this year for them in that role, and he leaves as a free agent, you can possibly recoup a comp pick in the lower rounds as well. So, and if he does well and helps in the second half of the year, more power to them. And so I think that's why you would be, I can see that's why it feels like that's what the plan is, based on the stuff they've said publicly, and that's the sense. So, that's where he's at. But he did have a couple nice plays on those run stops. But Darian Mathis was the second defensive tackle pairing ahead of John Ridgeway. And I think Mathis is another guy. I think he's got to show more. Like, I don't think at all that he's a lock. Definitely has to show more. And I think again, it goes back to competing and all that. So, I felt like there were a couple times today, and I was able to watch him a little bit, and felt like there were a couple times, or one time he gets moved out. Another time I felt like he handled a double team well and makes a play, right? I think it was Podoe pinches the play back to him, but a good job by Mathis making the play. So, and Ridgeway didn't exactly do anything to stand out as well. So I'll be curious to see what they do there. And Podoe, I think, is a guy that they seem to like as well, based on where they're playing him and when they're playing him. But I felt it was interesting that both Ridgeway and Mathis got snaps in the fourth quarter. I think Ridgeway had more in the fourth quarter, but I definitely saw it looked like Mathis was getting some reps in the fourth as well, because they've got to see more out of those guys. I think they got to see what they want out of them or how they fit, and et cetera. But Mathis is the guy I think is going to have to continue to make some plays, because to be honest, you don't see a lot from him during practices, and you haven't seen a lot from him when he has played in the past. So the other thing that jumps out, Frankie Louvu is fast and physical, man. And I like Mike Samerstill. And so there was one play where they both kind of combined. It was scramble play, but Samerstill's covering the slot, and tight end comes out and is going to come block him. And he's just able to kind of just ignore him, avoid him, good angle to the ball, and pushes it. He and Louvu make the play. And so Louvu, you saw, is just physical when he attacks the passer. And saw that in the Jets practice, saw that last year with Carolina, see that in practice now. It's who he is. By the way, some of the starters who didn't play for Washington: Bobby Wagner, Daron Payne, John Allen on defense, and Jordan McGee started for Wagner in the middle. I like him. I didn't focus a ton on him, so I don't have great stuff to relay on him. But I do think he's showing some things. He does play with some speed as well. So I think he's going to end up to be a good pick. I think it's a good spot for him to learn to play behind a Bobby Wagner and see how the guy prepares, see how the guy calls a game, etc. And I think that's a good situation for McGee. So felt like KJ Henry had some moments. I like how he's starting to come along. I don't know that he's in the rotation necessarily, but I think it's a guy worth developing. Couple pressures, but I also like Javonte Jean-Baptiste, and I think he's a raw player for this level, coming from two good programs, Ohio State and then Notre Dame. But I also, he's a 7th-round pick, so I think he's a guy that you can sit there like, I'm going to give him some time, and the length is just incredible. And you did see the length play out against the Jets today. And there was also a run stop that he had that when you watch them do drills, it's like, oh, this is exactly how it kind of looks. Step up field, cut inside, it's the angle to the ball. It's basic, but he executed it well, makes the stop because of it. So I'm intrigued by him to see what's he going to look like in a year or so. That's what I'm kind of looking, because when you look at him, it's like, kind of looks like the part, right? So that's a good thing for them. Tyler Owens made a stop on a punt return. I like that guy. I think you know that. I don't know that he makes the 53, but he's certainly a guy worth keeping around for sure, because he made the play on punt return as a gunner, just a really good play, avoids the block and just gets down there, makes a stop. So I think they like him. I know they like him for sure, but whether or not it makes the 53, I think we have to wait and see. Derek Forrest, by the way, did not play as well. He's still dealing with an injury. So of the other quarterbacks, I think Driscoll has been fun to watch. He runs around a little bit back there. I felt like he did a nice job. Sam Hartman, I felt like did a good job. He was getting the ball out quick. And when you saw a pass to Ben Sinnott, gave him a chance to run after the catch. And speaking of Sinnott, so I think he's another guy that is, let me see what I have written down on him, where he had it. So he had some nice plays, and in my notes, I'm not finding him, but I know I wrote it down and I'm just botching it. Anyways, but what I liked is just how he ran after the catch. And I pointed out the one from Sam Hartman, where he turns, the defender is a few yards away, but it's a good job by Hartman. This is the timing and rhythm of play. When you get rid of the ball in time, then you give the guy a chance to run. And that was the case here. There was cushion. He gets the ball, turns out to the right, stiff arms the guy, and probably gets about another 6 or 7 yards after the stiff arm. A good job. But the best one was the seam ball. So even on the route, like you see them run these routes all the time. And I just like the little subtle turn. He's running down the seam, little subtle turn of his head to the right, to the outside, enough to maybe create a little bit more of a gap inside. So he turns back to the inside. Ball is there at about the 46. The first defender tries to tackle him. Well, shoe fly shoe, right? Bounces off him, gets down to about the 38. Another guy comes over to get him, keeps running. A couple other guys join on. He's not done until he gets to about, I think it was the 21. That's going to be a guy that the home crowd is going to love if he has those kind of plays. Now, it's funny because in practice, you're not going to see that kind of play, because you just don't see that in practice, right? Because you're not tackling to there. When you hit it, the first guy might bounce off him, and then that's kind of where the play might be blown dead. But so in the game, you're going to see that. That's what he added at Kansas State. He's not a guy that's just making these wow plays all the time, but he's a guy that is showing he can help in different areas. He can be as a physical blocker. I think that's something that he certainly I think has shown. And it's funny because I thought Cole Turner as a blocker, when he's on the move, he's a much better blocker, because it's funny when he's at the line and you see him do this sometimes, where if he has to go into a sled, he's not going to get a bunch of pop on there. And I just wonder if that trunk of his, does he have enough there in the hips to roll into that and create the power on its own? But when he's in space, I feel like he does a nice job with it. And I think that's where I saw him help as a blocker for sure, whether it's some of this, coming back across the line or out in space, whatever. And there are times where I've seen him get blown up on those too. We saw it against the Jets as well, but that's where he helped. And John Bates, nice block, also got moved on one. So I think, in Colson Yankoff, the thing to note about him is where he was playing on the kick coverage. So he was on kick coverage. Yeah, he was on kick coverage. So like the first kick coverage. So that's always a tell. Like, what do they think about these guys? Because they're giving him a look on the kick coverage. Now, does that mean he's going to make the roster? No, but it means he's the guy that they certainly are intrigued by as an undrafted tight end. So that's where he can help them, whether it's now or some point this season to see. But I think that's always telling on the returns. And by the way, the returns, Zacchaeus was the first punt returner there, had a couple nice returns. The only question I have with him, he did not catch the ball smoothly. And that's something that you have to be able to trust. So everything starts with ball security, then making the first guy miss. But that starts with the ball security. He did catch the ball. He didn't fumble it, didn't lose it, but they weren't smooth catches. So I want to see him do it more to see how it looks when he does do it, because the speed will help. And Jamison Crowder was not. He was, again, Zacchaeus was the first back there. First kick returns were Davion Davis and then Byron Pringle. Players on kickoff return, Bates, Percy Butler, Bo Bauer, Michael Walker, Jeremy Reeves, Jordan McGee, Cole Turner. And then I'm not sure if it was Sam Still or De'Ami Brown, but one of them was out there, because both of them were out there in kick coverage, along with Butler, Yankoff, McGee, Reeves, Walker, Bates, and then James Pierre. And then I think it was, I'm trying to remember who the other one was. I had it written down here, and it was, Tyler Owens. That's right, my guy. So he was on there as well. So all those guys are guys that they have interest in. If you're going out there, doesn't mean they're a lot to make it, but does mean that they're guys that they have a lot of interest in. The other thing that was notable on the special teams is Riley Patterson blinked one off the upright from 39 yards. I have a feeling their kicker is going to come from the final cuts or around that time. So, and then speaking of special teams, Tress Way with maybe the best tackle of the day on special teams. The returner's breaking out, breaks the tackle, and then Way with a perfect form tackle to bring him down. The sidelines went crazy. And that's the kind of stuff you love. If you're a player, like, dude's been around for a while, it's a preseason game, he's going up there making a tackle. You can't tell me that the coaches aren't going to show that freaking play during the week of, like, look at this. This guy's a punter, a veteran punter. It's just, the game doesn't count. He goes up there and makes a stick and prevents a long game. That's competing. That's what this team wants. So that's you know what? Let's end on that one, because that's where it should end. All right, folks, that's it for me. I appreciate you tuning in this long. If you made it to this point, if you made it this far, as JP Finley says, I owe you a beer. Or actually, I'll get maybe an old fashioned or a glass of red wine. So anyway, but I do appreciate you tuning in. I will be back Sunday night / Monday, talking to Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders. The Commanders are back at practice. They have a 2:00 practice on Monday. No fans allowed. That's over. And then another one on Tuesday morning. And then they're headed to Miami. So anyways, folks, thanks for tuning in. As always, appreciate it. I'll talk to you next time.